we're going to do what we did last week. We'll just go through, we'll have Zach go through the document, and we addressed the suggestions and comments from last EVIIWG meeting. So we are assuming that everything has been addressed. There was a redline version and a non-redline version posted to the EVIIWG website as well as on DMM on Monday. So hopefully everybody got a chance to look at things, and we'll just get started. Zach, did you want to pull up the live document?
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. Let me hurry and pull up the Word document, and we'll plan on going over the edits, and then per Mari's suggestion in the last meeting, we've decided to add an appendix to the end of the document where the EVIIWG participants here can go over the remaining outstanding items we've discussed in the group, as well as form some recommendations for topics to consider by the commission. So with that said, we'll start by going over red lines in the document. Let me just confirm. Okay, yep. Screen sharing. All right, so finding our first red line, just a minor change. We're just updating the plug numbers in a footnote discussing the Make Ready program installation and commitments. And then finding an edit here in 1.1.3, the second sentence now reads, good record keeping supports program review. Another minor edit. Okay, and then going on to some of the changes discussed in the last meeting, in the innovation sections, there's been some edits to bring the document more in line with that discussion. So the first sentence in the innovation section now reads, this subsection details operational innovations that have been identified and implemented by some or all of the members of the joint utilities as specified below. Each utility may consider these for implementation on an as-needed basis. And then it continues to read as it did in the previous meeting. So this edit is trying to address what criteria in this document applies to specific utilities versus, I think in the last meeting there was a concern on not knowing if this was just a Con Edison practice or a practice that could be implemented or currently implemented by other utilities. So the following sections that read below then should address what's currently implemented by Con Edison, for example, and what the utilities may implement as needed as queue management demands. Going on with the innovation section, 1.3.3 has had some edits similarly. So the first sentence now reads, for example, the joint utilities will post information about phased connection as an option for discussion with utility fleet advisory teams. When sufficiently resourced, utility fleet advisory services can help participants understand the benefit of phased connection. Skipping a few sentences, it reads, Con Edison has implemented this practice, which is especially helpful during high volume application periods when the time savings associated with minimizing the need for utility side upgrades are amplified. Avoiding utility side upgrade during high volume application periods reduces stress on the queue. Additionally, interested parties may request information, including a site assessment on phasing the deployment of EVIIWG chargers at a given site. So this edit now addressing the options for phased connection. In the past meeting, we discussed how phased connection might not be the correct option for everybody, but for those who are interested in this section really emphasizes that the fleet advisory services can be tied into to showcase that. Any thoughts we have on these edits so far? Does this seem to address a lot of the concerns we heard in the last meeting on phased connection? Cole, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I think just a clarifying thing here. So I was a bit confused when I was reading the last two sentences here because the middle sentence referring to what Con Edison has implemented makes sense. And then it says, additionally, interested parties may request information. And it just wasn't immediately clear to me whether that was describing something that Con Edison customers can do as part of what Con Ed has already implemented, or if that is meant to say, like, tie back to the first part of what customers for all of the utilities would be able to do. So I think it is the latter based on what you just described there. So maybe just clarifying it so it's additional interested utility customers or something like that, just to make it clear that that's not just a second part of describing what Con Ed has done.
Yeah, that's a good point. I really appreciate that, Cole. I see on that reading how that would continue on the Con Edison thought of not being sure which customers it applies to or participants it applies to. So I'll add a note, make that fix. All right, any other thoughts on these edits? All right, not immediately seeing any hands, we'll continue forward. So looking at section 2, 2.1, discussing the budget changes, now reads at the end, the joint utilities also aim to cross-publicize programs, helping customers that are pursuing EV charging infrastructure projects learn about complementary programs, such as managed charging and other cost relief offerings. So Cole, I think this goes off the edit that you had recommended about ensuring that the complementary programs like managed charging were included here, and having that note about just learning how customers can use those options in their projects.
Yep, that looks good to me. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, looking at section 3, we've removed one line in 3.3 that read, utilities should provide participants with results following the determination. I believe this was just kind of a redundant point, so the full paragraph should still relay the same point. Emphasize that timeline estimate is specific to the individual project and the scope studied in the service determination. As construction timelines vary based on project complexity and customer timelines, any modifications made by the participant throughout the process may also extend to the utility side timeline. So that's going on that point that communication can be requested by customers, as we discussed in the last meeting, but the burden of communicating, every single project change, as we discussed, would be different in each utility and not necessarily able to be standardized in this form. So that was that edit. See, section 4 now reads in 4.1, when a customer requests a change in a project scope where the project's load increases or service point of entry changes after the service determination study has begun, then the project must be submitted for new engineering analysis. Utilities should provide an estimated updated timeline that a modification will require. Timeline impact varies widely according to degree of scope changes. All utilities have determined policies that inform participants of what they are required to do if the participant changes the scope of the project, impacting the service determination process. Policies with a flexible approach to queue management are essential for accommodating changes midstream while keeping fairness top of mind and projects moving. These policies are communicated to participants at multiple points in the application process via education materials and conversations with the utility. For example, the Con Edison program team communicates this message in webinars, in conversations with the participant, and in the program agreement. So any thoughts on these changes in the body of the document so far? All right, not immediately seeing anything. I believe that takes us to some of the changes in the appendix now. So after some discussion, on the staff side, we're thinking it would make sense to have this Appendix C comment summary be included in the actual order as a more thorough comment summary rather than bullet points to really capture all of the points. And to still capture what these comments and suggestions were, we're thinking of now having an appendix for topics for future discussion, as well as recommendations as to where topics may be convened at, or what maybe is specific to the EVIIWG stakeholders here directly. So we have filled it in initially with some of the issues we've identified so far, but I would love to open it up and hear what else could be captured here, and any other suggestions from the group, so we can have a thorough ending here. Mari, I see your hand up.
Yeah, hi. I was going back to the document. Sorry, I was looking at this while you were going into this next section. And there was a comment on there, which I don't think was reflected anywhere, about dispute resolution. Is that something you're thinking would be going into, you know, another forum? Or when I look through, I think it was comment 18, which, or no, it was on footnote 19 on page 6 of the document that has the track changes. Sorry, wait, I lost my place. There it is. It was footnote 18. Dispute resolution should have its own section in the document listing the steps that disputes are handled through. I don't know if that was just from a comment and you all had considered it and didn't include it, but I didn't, unless I missed it, I didn't see that.
So, hi, Mari, it's Lisa from staff. And it is something that we're talking about. It might be something that that we can put at the end in the appendix that Zach was just going over, and having the utilities maybe put it in a participant guide so that the participants of the program can see and understand how the dispute resolution works.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, I believe changes that have been made there, one of the footnotes up here now, where previously in that Appendix C, there was a footnote responding about the dispute resolution process for Con Edison. I think the intent of that comment was to expand on, you know, the full availability of dispute resolution, not just in Con Edison. But given that discussion last time about whether this is that utility guide or a participant guide, that's where we're thinking that would be a good topic to either include in this Appendix C as communicating that information to customers through something like the participant guides or some other customer-facing resource. So with that said, I will add another bullet point here on clarification of the dispute resolution process options for.
Is that satisfactory to you, Mari, right now? Or did you want to see something actually in the document? It seems that because it is a utility-facing document that it might not be necessary, but I'm willing to hear what you have to say if you have something different. Okay.
Hi, Cole, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I think I misunderstood or didn't quite get just what you were explaining with the comment summaries. Can you just say that again, what the plan is for including or not including the comment summaries in this document?
Yeah, so the plan that we're thinking of doing with the comment summaries is providing the full order style comment summaries and including that in the actual order that would be addressing this EVIIWG modified proposal document. So the intention there would be to have it, directly included in that order for everyone to read and for the commission to reflect on those comments directly within the order.
And with that, is the intention that those summaries would reflect comments to date, comments on the SAPA, or both?
It would be both, and I'm thinking that this summary here, they would probably be separate in the actual document. It would be, the EVIIWG stakeholder comments throughout the EVIIWG process, And then in the actual order, there would then also be that SAPA information followed by the comment summaries to the direct SAPA as well.
Got it. Okay. All right. That makes sense. Thank you.
And then the intention with this following appendix then is just making sure, as we were saying, that Appendix C would have all those recommendations and concerns that either still need to be addressed or haven't been fully addressed. They would now be, I think, easier to see here and, you know, a little more direct in what the group is still hoping to see, rather than having to, you know, dive through all the comments and find out what's been addressed in the comments, what still needs to be addressed. So that would be the intention then of this additional appendix here that we're going through. Melanie, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump back to the dispute resolution conversation that Mari brought up, because I think that was our comment, City of New York. And I remember this coming up in the last meeting, and it was discussed that this would go, something would go into the body of the document, not just the appendix. I think we'd be okay if it's not in the body, but just because that was something we talked about last time, I'm just wondering why, what the reasoning was for changing that decision.
So let me hurry and find the footnote. I agree that it definitely should be in the document, and especially that the comment Appendix C is being removed, that it should be addressed. And I think we're open if there is specific information that we would like to have in the body as a group
Katie.
to include it. But yeah, please go ahead, Katie.
Katie, you.
I just wanted to point out, in case you missed it, Melanie, it's we moved the footnote that was in the appendix and made a slight change to the footnote itself in terms of content. So it is in the body of the document. It's still a footnote talking about, you know, how customers can get in touch with the utility and what their options are for contacting with questions and need for resolution. So it is out of the appendix, but it's still a footnote. So I think the approach that Zach walked through was having it both acknowledged in the body, but also a place where, you know, there could be more development of kind of what customer-facing resources are needed.
Okay, that makes sense. I think I had misunderstood earlier, so I appreciate you pointing that out, Katie. I think we'd be fine with that then.
All right, any other thoughts on any of the changes made to the document so far, or any additions to be included in the final appendix? All right, so not immediately seeing anything. I think internally at staff, we'll take back the document here. It needs a lot more work with the formatting here. I think as it's been passed between all the different parties that have looked through it, it needs some work, and we've removed the table of contents for now as it was not cooperating with PDF format. But we will polish up the document and then make sure that the new appendix C reflects the comments we received on what are still outstanding issues. And then from there, we don't have any timeline yet that we can provide on what a SAPA process might look like, but I believe
The SAPA is 60 days.
yeah, it'll be when that does happen. The SAPA period will be the 60-day comment period. Those comments will Also, all these comments will be included in the order. Like I said, it'll probably be an appendix for what was previously Appendix C, but that'll be in the order itself. Any questions anybody has on the next steps for the process here? Richard, I see your hand.
Hi, Richard from New York Press. Do you have a timeline of when you think the document will be SAPA'd for the 6-day period? Is there an estimate?
We do not have an estimate at this time, no. We would prefer, you know, to get it out as soon as we can, if that's helpful at all.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Mari. I don't know if you can hear me. I had to switch to phone. My internet cut out for a while. I was curious, did you all go over the topics and where they might be discussed? Is that something that you were hoping to put forward in this appendix as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If there are specific forums or topics you would still like to hear, I think Appendix C would be a great spot for it.
And where it's going to be addressed? Like, do we want to think through that here, or yeah, I'm just trying to understand what we want to discuss.
I think we can discuss all of that with the appendix, and we can do it right now. I'm not sure if everyone knows, are you talking about all the other proceedings that these may fall under? Or?
Yeah, just kind of thinking through where they could fit. In what other proceedings or forums that are already happening, or like we've talked about, whether there's some kind of a phase 2 we want to push for here.
I think that's good, but we have to recognize that we don't want to, you know, if the commission has a different idea, we don't want to supersede what they're going to say. But I think bringing it up and thinking about where things could go is an excellent exercise right now.
Okay. And were there other issues that were brought up in the last little while you all were talking about this? Because I know there were some other issues that other folks had said. I think I'm not seeing public queue on here, but I think that was mentioned by a couple of folks. I'm not sure if there's anything else that others had put forward.
Yeah, public queue, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that was both. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we were interested in getting a publicly accessible interconnection queue for EV projects, just to know where these projects are going in.
This is Katie from Con Edison. I think our thinking was that would fall under the first bullet, where, you know, if we're discussing measuring timelines and reporting out on the improvements there, we're going to capture, I think, the seed of what you're looking for here. In terms of actually having a public queue, it's to understand that idea comes from, you know, that what's used in the SIR process for connecting, exporting resources to the grid, but in when we're just connecting load, there's not a queue, so to speak. We're just, you know, having engineers study the load request and then getting back to folks with a response. We're not forcing one project to wait because, you know, a separate project hasn't had a determination yet. So I hope that helps clarify just the distinction between what happens for connecting load versus connecting export.
Yeah, I think another part is also it falls under the vehicle to grid area when there's an EV load study and an SIR process study. But there's already available public interconnection queue for DG studies, and there's been some scenarios where an EV project load has gone in front of a project that was already being looked at for EV load because it was going through the SIR process for the export function, so that it would avoid some bottlenecks where certain projects would be able to take the available capacity at a certain site. And it would just be good in general for planning for the grid, to know where these are going in.
So to bring this up, in the future, is this something that would be better suited for the proactive planning proceeding? Or another EVIIWG meeting in the future?
Hi, Lisa. It's Katie again from Con Edison. I think the proactive planning work is more focused on upstream upgrades. So wouldn't focus on the, more project specific or location specific capacity needs.
Thanks, Katie. So it would be better for a future EVIIWG meeting?
If that's the direction that the commission is taking this, then sure. My colleague Allison Kling also had an idea. She's sitting in the conference room with me, so I'm gonna let her speak.
Hey, Lisa, can you hear me?
Hi. Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure I'm close enough to the mic. Yeah, and I just want to reinforce, happy to talk about it, but what Katie was talking about is, if the other utilities have thoughts too, but there's no queue per se for just connecting load. There's no reservation or order of line. So it's a different animal than what we see in the DG space. So I just want to make sure that's clear, and we can definitely talk about it, but it's not something that exists today. So just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
So I think the good discussion point for clarification with the stakeholders and understanding any misunderstanding or highlighting misunderstanding and clarifying in a future EVIIWG if that's what the commission directs, or in some other stakeholder forum if that's what the commission directs. But probably not in proactive planning.
Thanks, Katie and Allison.
Thanks, guys. Josh, I see your hands up.
Yeah, this is Joshua Kaplan from National Grid. I think sort of on Lisa's question about should this be for future EVIIWG or a different forum? I think one of the things that, at least from National Grid and the other utilities can confirm if they have a similar feeling, is that many of these topics would span not just electric vehicle connections, but other types of connections, in some cases load only connections, in some cases load and distributed generation connections. And we really feel that the best forum would not be one that is named EV something, so that we can get the full range of stakeholders that would have interest in commenting about how those changes may impact not just EV connections, but all the other types of connections that we handle, so that we could harmonize improvements and meeting stakeholder needs across all of our segments, and ensure that we don't accidentally prioritize one technology type over another just because we had it in a particular proceeding that somewhat biased some participants from participating. Basically just the thought that if obviously I'm the utility, but if I were a maybe a commercial real estate developer, I might not find it necessary to be in an EV proceeding. But if we were talking about connections in general for commercial customers, I might be more interested to participate.
That's an excellent point, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
name
on
and
those,
time, right?
oh, sorry, I can't see hands up, so I can go after whoever was just talking.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
On that, I do think that's a good distinction, and I also think that along those same lines, the thinking about timeline measurement and reporting could continue on in the EV group, because that doesn't actually have to apply across all load projects. It can be just applied to EV load. And so I would vote for that continuing on as something we discuss in the EVIIWG.
Thanks, Mari. Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, going to the point of you're saying for an EV group would not want to prioritize one technology over another. I think one of the issues that New York Best members have been facing is that um, harmonizing the interconnection queue for projects that have an EV load and SAR process for the battery. That is one project, and there hasn't been one working group or place where we can discuss these types of interconnections. And it, in a certain way, it kind of is not fair for the people setting up these bidirectional chargers, because this is one interconnection process and not one group has taken responsibility, because it's been discussed in the ITWG, and they said that they don't want to focus on the policy side and the EV load side, and then we come to here and they don't want to discuss the interconnection process for bidirectional chargers. So I think I'd be happy to discuss this during the SAPA period, additional comments, but I was just hoping to put forward some of the issues that haven't been addressed in any of the working groups, and trying to figure out a place to discuss them. And that's why I'm bringing these points up for further discussion. Not saying that it would need to be in a future EVIIWG meeting, but it'd be great to get some kind of consensus on where the issues that stakeholders are bringing up and this can be addressed.
If I can just comment on that real quick, Richard, totally agree. We definitely need to get to consensus on the right place for these things to get addressed, because not addressing them is not meeting the needs of our customers and stakeholders. So definitely agree. We need to find the right spot.
Yeah, and putting in comments during the SAPA period would be super, super helpful, especially on stuff like all of this. So thank you for already volunteering to do that. Yep.
And just one comment. If there is something that isn't directly written out in Appendix C, would I still be able to comment like on Appendix C and how I would hope for some of these ideas to be captured in a future EVIIWG or somewhere else? Like, does it have to be written in the doc? Do I have to make sure it's written in the document now to comment on that?
No, your comments they don't need to be related to Appendix C. You can add any comments that you would like, preferably related to the document, but they probably don't even have to be related to the document.
And this is Katie again from Con Edison. Richard, just curious, are you participating at all in the IPWG's Interconnection Policy Working Group? I think that's where like hosting maps are discussed, and there are 2 or 3 stakeholder forums per year.
Yeah, I've been in a few of them. I have it on my agenda, but we haven't discussed any of these topics in there.
Got it. Thank you.
Richard, if you want a bullet point added on something right now, we can also add it, but it's fine to, you know, put in comments during the separate period. We could do both.
Okay. Yeah, I think they might be on the document or not, but I'll just say like 4 of the main points are publicly accessible interconnection queue for the EV interconnection process, addressing misalignment of timelines between the SIR process for energy storage and the EV load studies, misalignment of incentives for EV load versus energy storage, and a lack of communication between the DG team and the EV load team. Those are the main topics that we have heard from our members.
Thank you for that. That's. Do you want to say something, Stephanie?
Yeah, sorry, this is Stephanie McDermott. I apologize. I was in another meeting and I just got here. So I apologize if this has already been said, but are you involved in the proactive planning proceeding too? I think some of those might be part of that.
Are you aware of any specific topics you know of in that?
So that proceeding is still pretty nascent. The utilities were required to file urgent upgrade filings, and then a month later, they filed a framework filing for considering planning for EV load and for building electrification. There haven't been any commission orders adopting anything as of yet. And I don't have the framework filing right in front of me, but certainly you're welcome to submit comments in that proceeding too.
Okay, yeah, that's helpful. I'll take a look to see. I'm not aware of what would be important in that document on the agenda, but I will take a look. Thank you.
Mari, did you have anything specific for those bullets, or were you going to put something in written comments?
Yeah, I was, I was curious where you all think these things could fit, because we would love to continue these conversations, but we've also heard from the utilities and from you all that their other forums may be more appropriate. So we're definitely interested in, like I said, connection, timeline, measurement, and reporting continuing on in this group. So I'm putting that forward now, but I know we've talked about V2G and flexible connection, and then the website and informational resource enhancement may apply to just broader than EV load projects. So anyway, I'm curious where you all think those could go. We could definitely make a recommendation in our written comments, but if you all have any thoughts on that now, I'd be interested to hear where those could fit.
Yeah, we would need to coordinate with some of the other groups to figure out where internally we think it could fit, but any support that we have in the record in written comments would be extremely helpful.
Got it. I can think through that as well.
Okay, thank you.
before we move on from this topic, this is Katie again from Con Edison. Just wanted to see, Richard and any others with experience on having exporting projects move forward, meaning EVs paired with batteries or battery standalone projects, comparing it to the load request process and having clarified that they are different in terms of what the customer is required to do and what we at the utility are required to do. Do stakeholders on this call feel that we still need to have the publicly accessible connection queue in this appendix? Because I think it's more a question of improving sort of what's under bullet 3, like improving the customer experience in terms of giving them a simpler application, looking at what the sequence of when the load is studied versus when the exporting technology is studied, and offering more insight into that sequence. I think that those are going to result in more meaningful improvements for the customer experience than the first sub-bullet with the public connection queue. So just wanted to revisit and see if we could get some alignment there.
I think one of the main reason that I wanted to include that in the appendix is there's been some real issues where without knowing where the feeders will be like where certain projects may interconnect and disturb some of the feeders for existing load growth due to the current projects in development, it could cause some issues with canceling their applications at higher rates than necessary because there isn't that visibility into where certain projects are being interconnected. So I think it is an important topic to discuss thinking forward for how to better proactively plan for EV interconnection. I do think it's an important topic to think about discussing in the future.
And I'd love to just clarify, when I'm talking about that first bullet on connection timeline measurement and reporting, I'm actually thinking of it as tracking and reporting of timelines, of end-to-end timelines. And I know we had mentioned public queues fitting under that bullet, but IREC is more interested in the tracking and reporting of timelines.
This is Stephanie McDermott again. I feel like I might sound like a broken record, but, having written comments to all of these effects is incredibly helpful. To the extent that we want to expand, we would like the commission to expand on the work that the EVIIWG is doing, or, identify other proceedings, or even, start new proceedings that address all of these concerns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think just more on a high level, I may have not clarified as well the last point with the publicly interconnection queue. But I just think in general, this helps the market avoid areas of limited hosting capacity, and also it helps prioritize areas where the grid can most benefit from these EV interconnections. And I just think with the varying timelines between an energy storage project being studied, the SIR process and the EV load, it can cause extra confusion without having visibility of where other projects are coming in. And I just overall, I think it'd be good for all EV interconnection of all types, just to be able to prioritize certain areas. So I just think it'd be something interesting to discuss going forward, whether it's in this group or somewhere else.
Yeah, we hear you, and we absolutely agree. So, you know, we'll take all of that into consideration, and, you know, hopefully your comments reflect this as well, so that, you know, when the commission makes a decision, it can address your concerns.
Good, thank you.
Does anyone else have any other concerns or topics that they want to address before we wrap for today?
This is Katie once more. I think it's important, and you know, I'm happy to chat with offline with anyone on this call that wants to learn more about the process, but I think it's important to just emphasize before we sign off that there is no queuing where like one customer jumps in front of another customer for load only requests. So I'm worried about the way that last bullet is written. And just to explain it a little bit more, I'm going to let my colleague, Mike Carroll, talk a bit about what happens when a load request is made and kind of what the sequence of events is following that request.
Yeah, hey, hello everybody, Mike Carroll with Con Edison. So just speaking to load only requests, so it's really independent from that SIR process where on the load only side, there is no reservation system for capacity. So, you know, I heard things like capacity map get brought up, like those are not, it's not like you're reserving set capacity. All those get studied as the system is today, and we build out the infrastructure necessary for those projects. But there is no queue where, you know, we have to wait for one study to finish before the next one is looked at. They're all looked at individually. A lot of them move in parallel depending on where the customers are in their design and their construction. So just wanted to kind of clarify it's pretty much completely independent from the SIR process when you have exports. Did that help kind of clarify the process at all, or?
So with that in mind, what would we recommend reframing the final bullet to? If we still want to capture if there is an issue here.
I mean, I know it's certainly an issue within the vehicle to grid or bidirectional chargers, but it's not just EV alone. I know that it is an issue. So you're saying there's no capacity maps or anything that relates to setting your individual project for EV load?
There are capacity maps, but those exist more to help inform customers. But when it actually comes, when you're submitting load, you know, those capacity maps are not a limit or a constraint in how we're going to build out the system. Like we're going to take that load request and we're going to design the necessary infrastructure for that project when it comes in. And just for context, there's different scopes of work for exports and load only, obviously. So on the load only side, you know, you submit a load request, and for the most part, you're going to get that ruling back within a month or so, maybe a month and a half, right? Because there's just not that additional layer of study where we have to study what the export is doing back to our system. So it's a little bit less of a complex work scope. But like the capacity maps that you see, none of those are barriers or constraints that are going to prevent you from getting a service ruling when you submit a load request for load only.
Do you
So
think?
in other words, the capacity. Oh, go ahead, Richard.
I was just going to say, do you think in the future, with more projects being deployed in a certain area, or when a grid needs to be built out more. There's not enough capacity in a certain area for certain projects. Do you think it will increasingly become more important to have these interconnection queues publicly accessible, or?
Yeah, well, I guess the key point is there is no, for the load only side, there is no queue, right? So customers file, we study, and we provide a service determination, and then the projects proceed. Like, there's nothing limiting as far as like, there's no line that you're waiting in on the load only side. It's just project gets submitted, we study it, provide a service determination, and then the project proceeds really as quickly as us and the customer can kind of work together on it. But there's no queue to make public.
And the hosting capacity map might give you a directional idea of if upgrades are going to be more complex or take longer because there's less capacity there. But as Mike was saying, we're always going to bring electricity to the customer requested project. It's part of our mandate, and the study that we deliver is, it's free to the customer. Of how the study clarifies how we will make the grid ready to bring that load to the customer.
Okay. So yeah, I'll take your point from there, and I'll do some more digging on that. I hear what you're saying, and I'll have to do some more research on the EV load side on its own. But I do know that there's some issues related to the harmonizing the interconnection process for the vehicle to grid side. So that could be its own topic for now, but I will have to do some more digging on that and maybe reflect some of that in my comments.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, I think we can keep the third bullet open-ended. Maybe another sub-bullet about other topics related to harmonization. And Richard, as you dig and come up with some examples, or also through conversations with us across the state, you can add in your comments some specifics to that kind of open-ended bullet.
Yeah, that'd be great to have that open-ended bullet in the vehicle to grid section. Yep.
In that case, should we add a bullet here that says other topics as raised in comments, or how should we best address that?
Exactly. I think, yeah, you could say something like other topics to improve the customer experience for EV plus storage.
Yeah, or just really like the harmonization of the interconnection process for this type of project. That also works.
That works.
All right, any other thoughts from anyone on the topics discussed today? All right, not immediately hearing anything. The staff email is open, evse@dps.ny.gov, if there are any questions going forward. But like I said, the next goal on the staff side will be to polish the document and make sure it's presentable, fix all the formatting flaws that we've pointed out. And from there, the next step would eventually be a SAPA period, so keep an eye on the docket for updates there. Thank you, everyone, for attending and for your engagement today.
Thank you.